January 17, 2018. I call the meeting to order. Roll call.
We discussed that.
Bennett.
Here.
Bertolo.
Here.
Lane.
Here.
Mealy.
Here.
Sinning.
Here.
Witecki.
Here.
Matthews.
Here. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the annual schedule of regular meetings herefore adopted and posted on the public bulletin board at the municipal building, emailed to the Hawthorne Press, Herald News, The Record, The Gazette, and all persons who have requested the mailing of such schedule. And a copy of said schedules remained on file in the office of the Borough Clerk from and since December 7th, 2017. We're going to go a little bit out of order tonight so that we can get a majority of you back off to the rest of your evening. So, Mayor, if you want to bring up your appointees.
Thank you, Council President. We have 3 swearings in tonight, so you may think that we're hiring a lot of people, but actually, it takes 3 people to replace Sergeant Finster, who retired.
His head got me this big now.
Oh, boy.
All right, I'm still sucking up. He wrote a lot of tickets. Patrolman Nick Tafuri is becoming a sergeant. Special 2, Brandon Flynn is becoming a sworn police officer, and Andrew Skay, who is a volunteer EMS fireman, and our dispatchers, who cut his teeth in North Wildwood this summer as a Special 2, is going to become our 40-hour Special 2. And then in our next meeting, we'll have a 20-hour Special 2 to bring the force back to its full complement. So by the virtue of the power and authority vested in me as mayor of the borough of Hawthorne, I hereby appoint Nicholas DeFury as a sergeant of the police department of the borough of Hawthorne effective January 3rd, 2018.
Have a motion to record?
So moved.
Motion by Mealy, second by Bertolo. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bennett.
Yes.
Bertolo.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Sinning.
Yes.
Witecki.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Nick, if you want to come up with your family? Okay, you're going to hold the Bible? Okay, now here's the secret. The television camera's right there. So
You
they
don't
can't
watch at
see
home,
you.
do you?
Yeah, no. Okay. Repeat after me. I, Nicholas DeFury,
I, Nicholas DeFury,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and I'll bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and will perform the duties
and
of
will perform the duties of
Sergeant
Sergeant
of the Police
of
Department
the Police
of
Department
the Borough of
of the
Hawthorne,
Borough of Hawthorne,
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly,
and justly,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Nick? Congratulations. I'll take that, and I assume you're doing the pinning responsibility.
Please don't stop.
Straight in.
We have some EMTs in the house, so.
Yeah.
We have all night, take it.
Thank you.
By virtue of the power and authority vested in me as mayor of the borough of Hawthorne, I hereby appoint Brandon Flynn as a police officer of the borough of Hawthorne for a 1-year probationary period effective January 18th, 2018.
A motion to record? So moved. Motion by Bennett, second by Witecki. Any discussion? Roll call.
Witecki.
Yes.
Sinning.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Bertolo.
Yes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Brandon?
whole family. I was going to offer the whole Bible.
No, Joe, you can't hold the Bible.
Who's going to hold the Bible? Okay, it's not that heavy, but yeah, the same rule because that's the television camera. Well, you're going to put your left hand on the Bible, you're going to raise your right hand.
Unless you're undercover.
And before we swear in, I just want to tell a story about Brandon. Brandon was hired as a 20-hour special, and while he was thinking about our offer, he was offered a sworn position in Fort Lee as a police officer. Brandon said he'd rather be in Hawthorne, and we said, if you do a great job, Brandon, you'll become an officer here, and I'm so proud and pleased that tonight we're getting to swear you in. Now you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brandon A. Flynn,
I, Brandon A. Flynn,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and I'll bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and will perform the duties of
and will perform the duties of
police officer
police officer
of the police department
of the police
of
department
the Borough of Hawthorne,
of the Borough of Hawthorne,
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly,
and justly,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now, it's our tradition that someone gets to pin the officer, and I guess you won the lottery there. If you draw blood, you get a bonus.
The mayor's joking when he says that.
We have a neon deck.
Congratulations.
He gets a bonus.
Congratulations.
Are we ready? Yep. By the virtue and power and authority vested in me as mayor of the Borough of Hawthorne, I hereby appoint Andrew R. Skay as a police officer Class 2 of the Police Department, a special police officer Class 2 of the Police Department of the Borough of Hawthorne, effective January 18th, 2018.
So moved.
Second. Motion by, motion by Lane, second by Bertolo. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bennett.
Yes.
Bertolo.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Neely.
Yes.
Sinning.
Yes.
Woteki.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Come on down.
All right, Andrew.
They were thinking about it.
Wateki's available.
I get all the Bible, yeah.
All right, who's holding the Bible? Okay. Same piece of advice, that's the television camera, so everybody at home can see you, and it's replayed constantly, so you can relive this over and over again. Andrew, place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Andrew R. Skay,
I, Andrew R. Skay,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the
and
Constitution
the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and I'll bear true faith and allegiance
and I'll bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and will perform the duties of
and will perform the duties of
Special Police Officer Class 2
Special Police Officer Class 2
of the Police Department
of the Police
of
Department
the Borough of Hawthorne,
of the Borough of Hawthorne,
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly,
and justly,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I'll take that. Who's doing the pinning? Okay. There goes a perfectly good suit.
Oh, well.
Okay, congratulations. At this point, if any of you would like to step outside, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or now take your opportunity to leave. We're going to go into closed session. So pursuant to NJSA 10:4-13, the Attorney General's formal opinion 29-1976, I entertain a motion to adopt the resolution CS 01-18, the public be excluded from this portion of the meeting in order that the council may discuss a candidate for building code subcode official and possible litigation. Items to be discussed in closed session can be disclosed in the public when the course of action has been determined.
Second.
Motion by Sitting, second by Witecki. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Just still a few seats available.
Immediate seating is available.
For the second show. Second less popular show.
All right, old business. Joe, we'll start your way.
Old business. Utter Avenue Road Railroad Crossing and the 208 Bridge still is not being snow cleaned on a regular basis. Can we remind our DPW staff to make sure that we get out there for those two locations?
We could have Jim Dusenberry call them.
Yeah, that was the Jim Dusenberry
It's
job.
actually who I used as a reference when it was brought up to me.
Yeah,
It's because
okay.
he's no longer in our audience.
That's
We forgot to
correct.
do it.
Yep.
Okay, yes, we will do that.
Next piece of old business. How long is PSE&G going to be parking down in the pool lot?
Probably for some time, as long as they're doing work in town.
Are we getting rent?
Yeah, what, at this point, it's got to be over 6 months.
Hey, they're working on my street for 2 years.
No, that's electric. This is gas.
No, I'm serious. If we get paid rent for our police vehicles when they're working duties, why aren't we getting paid rent to store their vehicles while they're in town?
We don't have any ordinance that
Right.
permits the collecting
Well,
of rent.
perhaps we should look at
Oh,
that.
I like that idea, Gary.
And we didn't give them approval to park in the parking lot.
No, we did. And by we, I mean he.
There.
The
You know,
administration did.
if they were more gracious neighbors, it wouldn't be so bad. But you know, they're not the nicest.
I know, they're also, their arborists have asked for permission to park in the town as well as they do the trimming in town. And
No way. Their arborists are the worst.
I understand, but they won't get any better if we make them drive in every day. They'll be here longer. We were thinking of using the Lefebvre Rubber Park in the overflow
Auxiliary
parking
parking
lot at WAG, since it's winter time. We don't think that will be a conflict.
The only thing I would say is for that lot, they'd have to, whatever baseball, softball
Right.
starts.
Oh, yeah.
And same with the pool lot, when the
Yep.
pool season starts. they'd have to be
Absolutely.
in.
No, absolutely correct.
But a
Do we
question
draw,
on.
do we draw any kind of hold harmless or anything to let them do that? There's damage or there's.
They have a
debris
Probably, if we
left?
don't, we
should do
probably
something
should.
Well, they have a
that
certificate of insurance to be working in town to begin with. I mean, they
Yeah,
have a
but not with
blanket.
us,
They have a
with the power
blanket.
company.
But are we named
Yeah, but if there's
specific?
a-
I'm
They have a-
asking about PSE&G, and I think that's what John is asking about.
Right, if there's an issue in the parking lot, just say, for argument's sake, they're parking a backhoe in there,
All
and
right.
it causes damage or
Okay,
whatever.
We'll make sure
We
we
can
get
ask
one.
for that.
We can get that. I
If you
think
don't have
that's a
one-
good
If you don't have
idea.
one, we'll get one.
Right.
Yeah, but the other question that I have, if we're gonna allow them to park in our lot there, then I would like it to be enforced that wherever they're trimming the trees, that they at least pick up the lumber. Because in a lot of places, they just,
At 208.
they cut it, they leave it, and then the resident or somebody has to go and pick it up, or it just rots there and looks terrible.
Right. Or we can
Watch this,
deliver it to
Dr.
the parking
Boswell.
lot where they are.
Councilman Lane is correct.
That's why I was recording it.
Any other old business, Joe?
No old business.
Gary?
I have no.
John?
None.
Bruce? No. Dominic? No. John?
Do I have an answer to my question?
Which
About
was?
cutting
the
the wood
wood?
and picking it
Yes,
up?
Eric
We'll
will
have that
insist.
discussion.
Okay,
and
thank
they-
you.
And their arborist is going to drive the areas with our arborist to make sure we agree upon how it's to be done, so hopefully to avoid what we experienced
In
down
the past, they're famous for just
Yeah. The
tree
big V.
topping.
We have a different,
Vs.
we have a different arborist from PSE&G than we had before, and this guy says he understands that the PSE&G is not always warmly received on their work, and he expresses his willingness to be responsive to what we ask.
And I thank you. And I know that the Shade Tree Commissioner thanks you.
John, just if I could jump back, you were talking about the public service leaving debris. Do we see that in the residential area, like our areas in town, or just along the highways and county roads?
Well,
The reason I
okay,
say that is,
no,
when
wait.
I complained about 208 and Route 20, when they were leaving the debris and everything else, I was told by our senator's office that that's the policy,
But
is to leave it on the
I
roads.
I
They don't-
brought
they
it
don't
to the
take it
mayor
away.
and Eric's attention
Really?
last
Yeah.
year.
They were along Route 20, they were, along the riverbanks.
on
They
208, they
were
left it on
dropping
208.
it and
Yeah.
just
I didn't
leaving
know
it.
that
They
was
said, no, that's
that's
the
a policy.
contract, is they drop it and leave it.
Well, I brought it to the mayor's and Eric's attention last year.
Yeah.
Going up Ray Ave Extension,
Right.
Yep.
right next, not next to me, but one house away from me.
Yeah.
They were going up. They cut the wood, and they actually fell into the people's property
Yeah,
on the
nice.
bank, and they
Okay.
the administration called public service and totally ignored their phone calls. So that's what I was talking about.
Right, and we also have a new representative from Public Service, so.
We'll certainly address that with them.
Got it.
Any other old business?
No.
New business, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, it's probably good that Dree is here because in the League magazine this month, there was an article in there with regard to licensing tree contractors from the state. So I think, and it gave some phone numbers and websites to go into. I went into it a little bit with the website, but it's a great. I think it's great, just like licensing other contractors throughout the state. So that's just one item that I had. But I do have something to read. In listening to the TV reports and reading the local news regarding what will or will not happen in Trenton relative to the legislation on marijuana, I would like Hawthorne to be proactive in preparation for this possible law. Our educators, police officers, and municipal alliance have been working hard with our students over these past years, setting the tone about drugs and alcohol. I would like us now to work on an ordinance prohibiting the retail sale of marijuana in the borough of Hawthorne. I am sure that our residents and parents are quite upset with what they are also reading and agree that we do not want marijuana sold in retail outlets in Hawthorne. We should take a hard stance right now. It has been noted by the public officials in other communities that marijuana retail stores could lead to increased traffic and quality of life issues such as odors and panhandling. Hawthorne is not the right location for marijuana retail sales, nor for the marijuana dispensary. In Colorado, where recreational marijuana was legalized in 2012, 176 of the state's 272 municipalities chose not to allow retail sales. Some municipalities in New Jersey, like Hawthorne, need to do the same. The city of Garfield in Bergen County introduced an ordinance last week banning retail sales of marijuana in their city. According to the record, 2 New Jersey shore towns, Point Pleasant Beach and Berkeley Township, has also moved to ban the retail sales of marijuana. In Monmouth County, the Shrewsbury Borough Council voted last year to prohibit medical marijuana dispensaries. I have copies of the City of Garfield and Point Pleasant Beach ordinances, and I would like us to have an ordinance committee and our administration look at these ordinances to create an ordinance for Hawthorne that could be introduced as soon as possible, hopefully the February 7th meeting. Thank you. Michael, I'll give you the ordinances that I have.
We already have them, John.
We have them. Just to talk to that point, the police chief and I, along with the superintendent of schools, have been discussing this for a few weeks already. The Passaic County Police Chiefs Association will be passing a resolution from their body signed by the 16 police chiefs. We will come to you with a resolution urging that there not be legalization of marijuana. Our municipal alliance will also be passing a resolution to go to the governor's office. The school board will also be passing a resolution. It's probably premature to ban the sale of marijuana since it's not legal yet right now anyway. So I don't know that you can ban something that's already banned. So until the governor, until the legislature allows the sale. However, I'm told by someone who works for a state legislature that there is tremendous opposition to this, including people of his party, and that they don't believe it's going to happen in the first 100 days. They don't see how it could possibly happen in the first 100 days. I have signed up for the New Jersey Conference of Mayors to serve on a committee that will deal with some of these issues, but we will be taking in the next few weeks or months ahead strong action condemning any legalization of marijuana, and you'll see it in form of resolutions from, as I said, from us, the Municipal Alliance, and the school board, because we're all in lockstep and believe that this just is not something that's beneficial for the state of New Jersey.
Well, I think you're going to see an ordinance. After you had left yesterday, we discussed it at length. We have copies of those ordinances, John, reviewed them yesterday, and we're going to do a hybrid of
Yeah, the ordinance
three of
committee
them.
did it.
We took the strong points and the weak points, and we want to go ahead and put it on the agenda for February 7th.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that, because I have to disagree with you, Mayor. I think a resolution doesn't go
Well, you don't
far-
have to disagree with me. You'd like to disagree with me.
I don't think a resolution goes far enough. Excuse me, guys. I don't think a resolution goes far enough. I think an ordinance is something that is needed, and I appreciate, John, you bringing that up with regard to you discussing it yesterday in the ordinance committee meeting. I didn't know about it, which is fine, but I did a little homework, and that's why I brought it up tonight, and I think it's important. Whether or not it goes through, at least we have an ordinance that says you can't do it.
And I
That's my
appreciate
feeling.
and I appreciate your passion on the issue, John. I don't mean to demean your passion and how you feel about the issue, but I just wanted to assure you that we are in the process of taking steps throughout Passaic County to let the.
I think it all works. I think the resolutions work. I think,
But the ordinance is much stronger.
They both are. They're both
you
important.
do-
When you get the Chiefs Association denouncing it, the Municipal Alliances
Okay.
denounce it, the school board denounces it. We just put the ordinance just is the icing on the cake, to work. They gotta
That's
go
fine.
together. They
That's
gotta go
fine.
together.
We'll do
That's-
all of the things, look, stopping the legislation is what the resolutions are aimed at. But the ordinance, and again, I know, Lori, you had the Municipal Alliance discussed it, and we're very strongly in favor of, I know the superintendent's very strongly in favor of stopping dispensaries from opening, and he's on the Alliance. We did get copies of Point Pleasant Beach and Garfield. Quite frankly, we compared the two while we were in our ordinance committee yesterday. The Garfield ordinance is not quite as well written. I happen to know the Point Pleasant attorney very well. She does an excellent job, and her ordinance is very well done.
Yes, it
And the
is.
Garfield one is good, but we need to kind of meld them together, and we're going to have an ordinance for you.
Great, thank
So the
you.
ordinance committee already met, discussed it, and we will have an ordinance for the next meeting.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Any other new business?
That's all I have, Frank.
Dominic?
No, I'm all right. I'll talk later.
Well, I'm just curious with this whole issue, if the state were to move to legalize it, can individual towns make it illegal?
Well, it's not making it illegal. It's a question of, it's a zoning issue at that point. The ordinance would be a zoning ordinance, and it would simply say that within the borough of Hawthorne, there's really no place to open up a dispensary. Now,
This sort of reminds me of a previous administration that tried to stop a tattoo parlor from coming into town.
No, actually, if
Whole
I
lot
could,
different.
there's an article that was posted down in Seaside because they did the same thing, and it says that the proposed law offers municipalities the option of opting out, and that's
Well,
what I think.
If it's written that way, yeah.
That's
if it is
exactly
written
what
that
it
way,
said.
that's fine, but even if it's not, look,
was
and
in
I
the
gave the
Loveland
example,
Times.
well, I gave the example yesterday. Airports are permitted in the state of New Jersey, but not every town has to have an airport. You can allow for certain uses within your borders, and certain ones may not be consistent with your master plan and your housing as it's spread out. So if we look at, is Hawthorne's 3.2 square miles we're talking.
Right.
You can't really locate a dispensary in an area where it's not either in a residential zone, abutting a residential zone, in proximity to schools, to churches. So the idea of saying we're not in favor of having a dispensary as a matter of zoning could make great sense in Hawthorne because of the way we're developed. It may not make as much sense in a different community. But in our community, I'm confident that if we had an ordinance saying it doesn't fit anywhere here, it would pass and it would be appropriate. And you're not saying we're not saying that it's illegal, we're not overriding the state, we're saying it's a matter of zoning, not here. And again, we don't have an airport. We don't
Again,
have,
That
right?
didn't work with a tattoo parlor, so I'd be
But a
interested to see a challenge.
tattoo parlor is a vastly different issue when it comes to,
It wasn't when the issue came up.
again,
Well,
I don't think they're comparable
The
at all,
real
no.
issue is that is probably similar to the Saddlebrook pornography case where they banned pornography in certain areas, and the judge says, that's fine, you can do that, just tell us where you can do it. And as long as you have some place that's available, that's probably more analogous, I think, than a tattoo parlor was the case in Saddlebrook, where they finally said, okay, on Route 46, you can do something, and that's the only area in town. That may be a decision we're faced with, I don't know.
Well, again, the Saddlebrook issue is one that we also considered. Saddlebrook did say no pornography anywhere within the community, and the court said, well, you can't do that. But this is a different issue. And again, the issue on pornography is much different from marijuana, because the federal government still does not recognize the legality.
And pornography is covered by the First Amendment.
Of course it
It's
is.
the argument, so it's totally different.
So again, there's no constitutional right to possess marijuana, but there is a constitutional right, like it or not, to possess written material, even if it's of a pornographic nature. So you're not running into the same obstacles when you're talking about marijuana.
I recommend we proceed with caution.
Okay.
No, I don't. I say we move full steam ahead with it.
Well, the most stunning thing about it,
It's a no-brainer.
from everything I've read, is
Exactly. I
there's no
agree.
test. You know, for driving, for impaired driving, there's a breathalyzer for alcohol. You can catch somebody who's impaired.
Right.
But supposedly, this stuff stays in your system for
Well,
so long.
one
We
of
have
the-
one officer trained, DRE. We'd have to
Right.
train the rest of our police
Right.
department.
And as Michael says, it's still against federal law.
Right,
It's against the law.
right.
So,
So he can do that when he does his sanctuary stay. He can do them both. Get 2 for 1.
and violate all federal laws.
Yeah.
Anything else, John? Nope.
I didn't bring it up. I'm good.
Gary? No. Joe?
I just have one small, the farmer's market, the new business that's coming in. Do we have any information about that?
What are you talking about?
What was the old farmer's market down on Wagrell Road?
You mean the
It's
Simply
not-
Elegant Deli? The old simple, oh, you're talking about, or you're
International
talking
Bakery?
about? the-
Talking
What
about
was
the
the International
storage,
Bakery?
Old
It's gonna be a
International
self-storage.
Bakery.
storage
cube store.
facility.
Right, there is an application pending in front of the
It's
planning
pending?
board. Yes.
The
All right.
plans were dispersed to the planning board last night for review,
Okay.
and will be on the work session agenda to discuss the next meeting.
My only concern is that it does appear that there seems to be some movement down there. I just want to make sure that we have approvals.
They have no permits, they have no approvals and should have no permits, so.
All right, could we have somebody make sure nothing's happening down there?
But you can clean up your site, you don't need permits to do that.
We would ask them to clean up their site.
We've been asking them, I just
Well-
don't want to.
They are moving, as a matter of fact, they wanted to be on the agenda last night for the planning board, but they never noticed to anybody that they wanted to be
Well,
on the
we have the
agenda.
right 2 people sitting in the back of the room that we can make sure that they're not doing any demolition or construction without,
I hope they're listening.
No,
No, not listening.
they're not listening, but we'll
Fill them in.
fill them in.
Excellent.
Anything else, Joe?
No, sir.
Okay. With no new business, Mayor, we'll go back to the administrative agenda.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say how proud I am of the 3 officers. 2 I swore in and the 1 we promoted tonight. They've all performed admirably. Nick, when I was interviewing him for the sergeant's promotion, just was well-spoken. He's very familiar with what's going on with the law and with the prosecutor's office, and I think he will be a fine addition to our sergeants. And as I said, Brandon, who turned down a sworn job in Fort Lee to take a 20-hour special because this is where he wanted to be, I think that says a lot about him as well. And of course, Andrew, who's been a volunteer fireman, a volunteer EMS, and a dispatcher here, as my friend Joe says, it's nice to take care of a hometown kid.
Absolutely.
I will be back to you at our next meeting with a 20-hour special, a little bit further from Hawthorne, lives in Califon. Right now, he's a special in Point Pleasant. So he drives an hour and 20 minutes to work in Point Pleasant. He'll drive about an hour to work here. And I think you'll be very impressed with him. He's a person who's committed to police work and is very excited about being a special here in Hawthorne. And he will be our 20-hour special. We'll swear him in the next meeting. That being said, I got to save some time for Rich and Bob in the back and jump the agenda. By the power and authority vested in me as mayor of the borough of Hawthorne, I hereby appoint Rich Cowan, Rich Stewin as construction official for the borough of Hawthorne.
Building subcode official.
Building subcode official. Yes, that's true.
Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bertolo, second by Lane. Any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bertolo.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Sinning.
Yes.
Watecki.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Come on down.
Okay, come on down. Bob, why don't you come and hold the Bible for me?
Witecki was.
I know, that's why I,
Wow.
Now let the mentor hold it. Right, Bob?
Last time I swore on Bible, I have to do that again.
There's a few less books, right?
Here's the thought, the television cameras there, so you want everybody to see you on television.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's right, zip up, I'll give you the Bible a hold. All right.
Actually,
Rich, come around this way.
get in the middle
Want me to go
between
this
them.
way? Okay, let's
No,
move
Rich should
this
get in the
way.
middle.
Get in the middle.
Nope.
Left
No,
hand.
left hand.
Left hand. Left hand.
Raise your right
up. All right. Raise your right hand.
That's
Repeat
better.
after me. I, Richard Stewart,
I, Richard Stone,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey.
and I'll bear true faith and allegiance.
I'll
Bear true faith and allegiance. I will bear true faith and
I will
allegiance
bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and will perform the duties of
and will perform the duties of
building subcode official
building subcode official
of the Borough of Hawthorne,
of the Borough of Hawthorne,
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly,
and justly,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for making the trip.
Welcome aboard.
All right, Bob, thanks.
Thanks for all your input.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you. Good to see you.
We'll have to take this paper to them some tomorrow.
Great.
Good night, Rich.
Good night. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Council President, I will tell you that I am a big fan of the mentor system. We used it in the DPW, we've used it in the Treasury, and now we're using it in the Building Department. It's always nice to have someone who knows the job and how to do it, teach someone with a little less experience. And it worked really well with Bob Bartley at the DPW and now with Lori's mentor in finance. So I'm very pleased that Mr. Connell will be staying as mentor to Rich Stewart. That being said, I call upon Michael Pasquale for his report.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations to those who were promoted and appointed, all excellent. And since I didn't get to report at the reorganization meeting, Happy New Year to everybody. The synthetic turf field, we get a little bit of movement on the progress, or lack of progress, but small movement. I spoke with the Deputy Attorney General who's handling this matter, who indicated that he is in the process of submitting to the appellate court all of the background material that he is obligated to submit. He hopes to have that done by month's end, and after that we will be submitting our legal briefs. So at least there was some small movement there. Mid-America Salt is an ongoing case which you're aware of. I will be at a settlement conference tomorrow morning in Newark. A lot of the communities, even though this is a very baseless lawsuit, have entered into nuisance value settlement agreements. The one that they put on the table for us was much too high to even come back and recommend to you. So I will be attending this conference tomorrow. And if a settlement is something I can recommend, I will, of course, come back here and seek your approval. The affordable housing, I want to say that very little has happened statewide since we last reported. Locally, we continue to work with the developer of 204 Wagler Road. He has changed attorneys. And no longer represented by the Price Meese firm, but in fact now represented by Ira Weiner and Andy Delvecchio from the same people who opposed his project when he wanted to bring in the Walmart. Go figure.
Strange bedfellows.
Strange bedfellows. We have really, though, in fairness, worked very well with Ira in the past. Ira Weiner, you might remember, also represented the people on Brockeisen Lane and worked well with us. So I'm hopeful that Ira is able to bring a sensible solution to us as well, but we will find out. You have on your agenda tonight 2 contracts. And one of the things I want to do is just take a moment because for the people who are watching, I don't think everybody understands when we have a contract to award the band shell bathrooms or the filtration system at the pool, what goes into it. I reported at private session tonight that there were questions raised as to these bids. When we go out to bid on a project, Eric puts together a bid packet. Steve does the specification. Lori conducts the bids. I review the bids once they're open, and then we deal with issues like questions that are raised by other contractors in the process. We have sustained the objections. Our bid packets are well done. Our process is well managed. And what we really try to do is make sure that we get quality contractors at reasonable prices, considering that we are bound by the local public contracts law. So we do a good job, and I think everybody should appreciate how much work goes into something that looks simple. You pass a resolution awarding a contract, but what goes into that process is important for everybody to understand. How many hands, pretty much 4 of them in this room and a whole lot of others that go into that process. So just wanted to point that out. And of course, our CFO makes sure we have the money to spend. We do have the new season of vacant and abandoned properties, and Lori took over that process. She immediately revised our application form to make it actually more compliant and consistent with our code. She has a report on the numbers because I don't have the numbers, so I'll defer to Lori on that aspect of it.
Thank you, Michael. At the start of 2018, we had on our list 48 vacant properties. I sent out letters to those 48 property owners. To date, I've received back only 11 responses with fees paid totaling $20,500, and then notices stating 2 properties that aren't vacant. So it also cleans up our list if it is no longer vacant and or has changed ownership. So that's a good thing. Our total of vacant properties for 2017 was 44, and just vacant, I'm talking about, not foreclosures. So just vacant properties, there were 44, and they paid a total of fees of $27,250. So every year that it stays vacant, the fees increase by $1,000. So you can see only 11 that have paid for this year so far, but we've already collected $20,000 from the 11. The other thing I wanted to mention on this list, it's foreclosures and vacant properties on this list, but unfortunately, the list has 305 properties total, 46 of them being vacant, the others in foreclosure. So discussed with Eric some, I've discussed with Michael some, and how we can really confirm and verify the ones that are or are not in foreclosure any longer. And I guess that would be if it's been sold, if it goes to a sheriff's sale. We don't ever get any notification of that, so I'm just in talks with them. How can that information get to us so I can clean up this list? I'm hoping there's not 300 properties in town in foreclosure, but maybe there is. So, I'm just bouncing it off of administration and Michael, and how, when a property gets sold, that piece of information can come to us so I can update this list. What's happening is Walter and Pete are really out there driving around and looking physically at the property. Is it occupied? Is it vacant? Is there a for sale sign? Is there a sold sign? Because we're just not receiving any other information that a property's been sold. Walter looks in the newspaper, what's gone to sheriff's sale, and so on. So just another piece, trying to get real information on this list that just gets carried over and carried over every year. Maybe it's talking with Louise or Lisa, what they get in their systems and how they get it. And this is also a list that gets Oprah'd a lot, and I'm just wondering if it's
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
I guess is the word, true. So just something I'm working on. Just wanted to put that out there because there's a lot on here, 300. So trying to clean that up. But otherwise, the good thing, as I said, is some of the notices come back that it is, has changed ownership or changed banks or this or that, so it does get cleaned up in that sense as well. So we'll just continue to collect the fees.
Right, and what we're trying to do, and what Laura and I have talked about, is the law requires a bank in foreclosure to send a notice to the clerk that the property's in foreclosure. It doesn't require the bank to send a notice saying, hey, guess what, we worked it out, they paid, they're up to date. There's nothing that requires banks to tell us the foreclosure's completed, there was a short sale, there was a sale to another person. So what we're trying to do is figure out ways, working with Louise, with Tim Henderson, with Lisa in his office, how can we piece that together? Because there's not 305 properties in foreclosure, I'm pretty sure of that, but there are a significant number. And so we need to keep a better handle on that. And again, when we see that they're vacant and abandoned, we go after them to try to bring them back into good use. And these fees are designed not to make us enriched, but rather to get them in good use. So the fact that we have a couple where we said, hey, good news, we're back on the market, we're now viable, occupied, that's good. And that's the objective of this. So it's a good program. It was a good one to institute, and it's being run and being run well. And Walter and Pete and Lori, everybody's doing their job very well. So just wanted you guys to be up to date on it, and we're going to keep pushing them. And that's my report, other than the fact that, of course, the band shell, we are starting to book our 2018 acts. Notices will be going, or actually letters, to those of us who were generous with their support in the past, like Dr. Boswell, and some of you up here.
Letters will be going out this week.
Yes, and Mrs. Mealy is, of course, handling that aspect. So we're looking to start our fundraising efforts, and we will start announcements coming up in the coming meetings as to who we've booked and when. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Michael. I now call upon Dr. Boswell for his report.
Thank you, Mayor. Arlington Avenue is shut down for the winter. Tonight, Resolution R2818 is the award of the band shell to Puntanesca Contractors of Hackensack. They were the low bidder. We have the funds to do it. In meeting tonight with the council, prior to the meeting, there was talk about the look of the split-face block, so we're going to get some samples, and some of the council also asked that if they can't get a split face that matches, can we get what's the price to go to a synthetic brick or a brick on the building itself? So we'll also get that for you. DPW building. I told you round one they submitted the building at 3 walls. Round two they submitted the building with 4 walls, but the walls were not sloped on the side because, as you know, the floor has a pitch to it. Round 3, they have now submitted the right building. We have approved the shop drawings for the foundation and the building. They have ordered the oil water separator, and we'll start the work on that the week of January 22nd. They have to coordinate that with the DPW because they're going to rip up the floor when they do that. So they want to make sure that works out. The streetscape, they still haven't scheduled the final inspection with the DOT, but that's on the calendar to get done. Rock Road is finished. We just need to do the final quantities, the final invoices. The water storage tank work is in progress. There was shot blasting in the interior of the tank that started, it's supposed to start tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to begin that process. 2017 road program, it's done except for striping. And the striping, of course, includes the crosswalk on McKinley and Parmalee, but the temperatures have been too low to stripe. You want the striping to be above 50 degrees or so, so we'll stripe it as soon as it's warm enough to do the striping. Municipal pool, extremely happy to tell you that the prices came in very, very good. The low bidder has a very good reputation. I mean, one of the best I've ever, doing checks on references, got some of the best I've ever heard. And I mentioned earlier tonight, he always wanted to have the pre-construction meeting. We told him you can't have that until you're awarded. Which will be tonight. This is our 2918. But he's already submitted the shop drawings to put this in, because we know this is time sensitive. It has to be done in time for the swimming season. There shouldn't be any issue. The nice news is with the money, the price, we can now take a look at the spray park enhancements as well, and maybe do it this year or maybe next, but at least we know now we'll be able to pay for those. Municipal tennis courts, the borough is going to submit to the Passaic County Open Space grant application to put in the DuraCourt. That's the one of those plastic tiles we talked about that can handle the differential settlement, which is always going to be an issue at the tennis courts, so that it's the only real way to handle it. And then I also just will ask you that you approve R 3018, which is to pay us for the work we've already done on the pool filters, using the normal Rich Goldberg method of doing work at risk. Other than that, Mayor, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Now I call upon Eric Maurer for his report.
First of all, I want to offer my congratulations to Sergeant Fury, Officer Flynn, and Officer Skay, and as well as to Rich Stewin for their appointments tonight. Just to follow up on what Lori mentioned just in passing, one of the things that I think was important on the vacant and abandoned is by require this registration, we do get our address list up to date. So then and the idea was if we then have a problem with a property, we're not then starting to figure out who owns it and what the correct address is. Now we have an address. And that was one big reason for going to this. And even though that sort of glossed over, it really becomes important when we have a problem with the property. Just follow one of the things Steve said regarding the streetscape. We don't have a meeting scheduled with DOT. We've requested one. Their person was out of town, I guess, on vacation or something, and we were hoping to at least get it scheduled before he left, but he never responded. So we'll have to wait till he returns to schedule. So it's not from us not reaching out. It's we're getting the response from DOT. We've completed the pickup of Christmas trees on the hills, and we'll finish the flats early next week. I know it's later than some people would like it. We will have to review next year to make sure we are doing it in a timely fashion. I'm setting up a meeting to begin work on phase 2 of our spatial data logic software installation for health, dog licensing, code enforcement, and public works, so we can get that moving. With our website, we met our first deadline, and by we I mean Lori met the first deadline in getting the information to Civic Plus, as that project moves along. As Steve mentioned, our grant writer is working on our open space application for the tennis courts. We're looking forward to having our required public hearing on February 17th, so we'll get that on the agenda. The grant writer is also working with our fire department on the assistance to firefighter grant application. Hopefully those are two things that we get funding for. See Drea here. We met with Drea in our new arborist, Kevin Alberta, to begin that transition. He still needs to meet with our outgoing arborist, which should take place when he's back in town, because he's been out of town as well. We've received our assessed values for 2018, the second consecutive year where we've had a tiny increase, very tiny. It's totaling just 0.1% over the past 2 years, but that was after 7 years of losses, in the recession, post-recession, with all the settlements. Although the increase these past 2 years have been small, we have to realize we're sort of swimming upstream because we've been settling a lot of appeals, as you know, and we now, through our virtually our entire backlog, as Michael's reported. So now when we start getting new construction completed with the Hawthorne Square project and others, we will actually see some significant growth going forward. And finally, Acting CFO Lori Foley is working through her first closing with the assistance of her mentor so that we can transition to budget preparation shortly. And again, that's another example where we have the mentor process working to help develop good people who just need a little bit more guidance and experience, and we're excited about that happening. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Our council president will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Joe, start your way.
I have no questions.
Gary.
Have we have come up with a starting date when they're going to start putting in those speed control things we just bought?
No, I have we're finalizing the list of locations. Probably what we have a few more locations than we actually have signs for. Probably what we're going to do is buy some additional back plates for it, put in extra poles, so then we have the, since it's solar powered, we have the ability of moving them around, so that's what we're working on, because we have 8 signs, and we probably have close to a dozen locations we'd like to use them, so we're finalizing.
But Ridgewood Avenue is on the list to get one.
My suggestion on that, Eric, is that we budget for this year.
To buy more.
Not to buy the unit.
No,
not
yeah,
to move
yeah, oh,
it
yeah,
around.
but we wanna
You know,
do-
our intent is this is gonna be.
Correct.
Deterrent, we don't wanna be
Yeah,
taking down.
last year was definitely a pilot, but, you know, if we can put in the other poles, we
Right.
can move them
We're
as we
hoping to
see
grow
it.
this,
And,
Right,
and,
you
and
know.
as we get the new ones, then we already have some places
Right.
already picked out with the poles in place, so it's just a matter of installing the additional ones. That's absolutely
Then
correct.
just to follow up on what we talked about yesterday with Diamond Bridge Avenue, if you can just, if you haven't already, if you can just
Yeah.
inquire
On that sign,
on that.
existing sign, right?
What we talked about is the signal that's by Dee's Luncheonette is on a timer. You know, instead of putting a unit on Diamond Bridge Avenue, just change the time on that and let it run 24/7 if that's what we choose to do. No sense in buying we have a unit there already.
Okay,
So that solves one of the locations.
okay.
The other question, I noticed that the Luke Oil station on the corner of Ray and Gulf is no longer selling gas. It's got the pumps all roped off.
Yeah, they've lost their franchise. They are in discussions with another gas company. They will need to come in front of the planning board probably, although it's probably a like for like. But they are negotiating with a different company other than Lukoil.
So I know when they got the permits to have the convenience store, it was contingent, they had the gas station. Now they don't have a gas station, now
They
they
will-
only have a.
Right, they will be getting the gas service back. They, as I said, they've already talked to our zoning inspector and indicated where they were in the process. Just, you know, Lukoil seemed to be more expensive than anyone else in the world at that location, so hopefully they'll find something a little more competitive.
I have no questions.
Bruce?
Eric, is downtown streetscape all ready to go for inspection now?
Yeah, we believe so. I mean, there will be some punch list items, there
Still?
always are, but where we are in the process, we believe we should basically get through the state, and then, you know,
Get our
maybe
money
have a
back.
couple things we have to follow up on, so.
And our grant writer, is it the same one we had, Mayor? Your buddies?
As of this moment, he's our grant writer through the end of February, and we'll make a
We're gonna use
determination.
him as much as possible while he's on contract.
Okay. How much all I have?
Done.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Dr. Boswell said with regard to the tennis courts. The reason that we're having so many problems there is that, so the people in the audience know, it's the water table there is so high that it, every couple of years it just, you know, it cracks the blacktop, and this is a solution that'll preserve it for many years.
Yeah, they're flexible enough to handle the shifting. You just can't do it with asphalt. You could put a curtain wall around and pump it down and put well points in, but that's
It's not worth the money.
No, it's absurd.
That's all, John. Frank?
Okay, anything else, Mayor?
No, that concludes the report of the administrator.
I have a motion to record the administrative agenda. So moved. Motion by Bertolo, second by Neely. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Introduction of ordinances. We have ordinance number 2200-18, an ordinance to fix the 2018 salaries, wages, and compensation of the employees of the Borough of Hawthorne, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey. Be it resolved that ordinance number 2200-18 does now pass first reading, and that said ordinance has been further, will be further considered for final passage at a meeting of the governing body in the municipal building, 445 Lafayette Ave, Hawthorne, New Jersey, on February 7th, 2018 at 7 p.m., at which time and place all persons interested will be given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish the said ordinance in the Hawthorne Press once and post it on the borough website at least 1 week prior to said hearing, with notice of its introduction and time and place, when and where said ordinance will be considered for final passage. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Bertolo, second by Bennett. Any discussion? Obviously, there was a number of statutory raises that were already in the books, as well as a couple adjustments that were discussed in the Finance Committee. Any discussion? Roll call.
Woteki?
Yes.
Sitting?
Yes.
Mealy?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Bertolo?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ordinance number 2201-18, an ordinance to further amend and supplement the code of the Borough of Hawthorne to revise and amend Chapter 220 fees, Sections 220-3, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, 220-12A, tennis courts, 220-12B, swimming pools, and 220-21 water. Be it resolved that ordinance number 2201-18 does now pass the first reading, and said ordinance be further considered for final passage at a meeting of the governing body in the municipal building at 445 Lafayette Avenue, Hawthorne, New Jersey, on February 7th, 2018, at 7 p.m. At which time and place, all persons interested will be given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish said ordinance in the Hawthorne Press once and post it on the borough website at least 1 week prior to the said hearing, with a notice of its introduction and time and place when and where said ordinance would be considered for final passage. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mealy, second by Bertolo. Any discussion?
Only what I had talked to Eric about and the mayor about the Board of Recreation. I went along with the increase, but I think that's something that we need to monitor closely, especially going into next year if the $15 minimum wage becomes a reality. And I think I would challenge the Board of Rec this year with their budget on looking at their expenses and some of the ways they handle field trips and different
One of the things we found out this year, Council President, with the raising the minimum wage that came into effect, that they're about $1,000 under budgeted because they weren't expecting that 60 cent or whatever.
We've already made the adjustment in the budget.
Right.
That will be reviewed by the
But they're looking
Finance Committee.
at their expenses because they know they try and live within that 2% increase. And
But I think just what we had talked about, some of the
Correct.
trips and then
Yep.
the pizza day and things of that nature, that we may have to take a hard look at some of those and just charge accordingly, to be
Yep.
honest with you.
Just may I ask, I neglected when we were preparing the ordinance, for the water rates, those are to go in effect for the second quarter of 2018. Should that be mentioned in the ordinance? The other ones that are January 1st, but the 2018 ones should be for the second quarter, since
It
we're already.
should, yes.
Yeah, and
The typist should have been made aware of it.
Yeah,
but
the typist, no, this is not the typist's fault, this is my fault.
Usually it's the typist. Yeah, no, that's no problem. So the ordinance will be amended to reflect, yeah, it'll be revised so as to reflect that the water rate increase goes into effect second quarter 2018.
The other
I will type
first,
that up.
January 1st, the other years.
Everything else is January 1st. Got it.
Okay.
I'll make the change tomorrow before Lori goes to publication, but consider that what is on your agenda tonight has that change.
And question? I'm not going to vote no because I won't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But Section D of the swimming pools, season badge, family no more than 2 persons age 21. Why would I buy a family badge at $295 for 2 people at 21 when I could buy 2 adults?
Well,
at
because you
$200?
might have 4 kids.
It says season badge, family, no more than 2 persons age 21.
Right, in other
Or
words.
older, and no more than 4 under 21 as defined by Chapter 350.
Right, so this way it's 2 adults and up to 4 children for the 250.
You can't have 4 adults and 1 child, whatever. You can't have 3 adults. So the family can only have 2 adults. You can only have 4 children. So we're
You're still going to break doing a family plan than 2 adults individually.
right.
That's
You're still a family.
so complicated. All right.
But what we've always done, and it's always worked. So
The only thing that really changed was the rate, not the
it's
description.
worked.
Yeah, we've always done it that way was the answer.
I know, but it
Doesn't make it
just
right.
it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make sense.
Well, you've been the other 13 years.
No, it makes sense, Joe, in the sense that if you have a family of 2 with no kids, well, they're not going to buy the family pass. But if you're a family of 2 with 3
Right, so
kids, you're going to...
take that first sentence out.
No,
Why?
that's...
Because if someone says, we have a family, we have 5 adults living in this family, we want, and rather than, we just want to, rather than buying multiple memberships.
Then you would have no more than 4 under 21.
Right, but my family of 5 has 5 people over 21. I can't buy the $295 pass. I have 5 adults, so I don't qualify. My kids have to get
Nobody
their
over
own.
21 is going to the pool until you're like, you have your kids again.
Right.
All right, leave it alone.
Any other discussion?
No.
Roll call.
Bennett.
Yes.
Frutolo.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Sinning.
Yes.
Woteki.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes,
Yes, I'm sorry, not motion care.
exactly.
Hey.
Consent agenda R19-18 through R30-18. R19-18 Borough of Hawthorne payroll dated January 5th, 2018. R20-18 State Court Appeals, State Tax Court Appeals. R21-18 State Tax Court Appeals. R22-18 Tax Exempt Status for Block 88, Lot 27. R23-18 Semi-Annual Payments for the 2003A and 2010A loans. R24-18 Semi-Annual Payment to the 2010 loan. R25-18 Semi-Annual Payment to the 2004 loan. R26-18 Payment of School Taxes. R27-18 Authorized Submission of the Fiscal Year 2019 Municipal Alliance Grant. R28-18 Award of Contract for the Restroom Structure Project. R29-18 Award of Contract for the Pool Filtration Improvements. And R30-18 Boswell Engineering Services for Filtration Improvements. Have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bertolo, second by Woteki. I gave it to you. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Woteki.
Yes, ma'am.
Sinning.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Frutolo.
Yes on R19-18 through R29-18, and yes on R30-18.
Wow, it was touch and go there for a while.
Does that mean all of them?
Yeah.
That means all of them.
Thank you.
I want to see if Dr. Boswell was paying
I was
attention,
listening.
and obviously he was.
I was listening.
Whipped up.
Bennett.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Reports of special council committees. Joe, we'll start your way.
Excellent. I have asked Drea to please come on up and give a report because there's been so many changes in the Shade Tree Commission. I do want to thank her for coming. I did not anticipate this meeting lasting as long as it has, so thank you so much for hanging in there.
She hates you right now.
It probably does hate me right about now.
Drea Labasco, 120 Beverly Road, Hawthorne, New Jersey, Hawthorne Shade Commission Chairperson. So I've been actively making sure that Joe knows what's going on because you're right, there is a lot of change that is happening. As Eric mentioned, we had the privilege of meeting with Kevin Alberto last week. We spent about 90 minutes with him. I did provide him with an onboarding document of things that we have to have an expectation of him doing as our certified tree specialist on a yearly, monthly, and weekly basis, as well as some pet projects that I'd like to see happen in 2018 or at least get started. One being the use of the iTree technology that's available online for doing the inventory of our trees. So there was a proprietary system in the past. It's vastly outdated at this point, and no one ever made updates into the system. But I do have an Excel spreadsheet that we can work with the state to upload into this free service that they offer through the forestry system. A couple of other things that we've asked Kevin to do is that's to start working with Colleen Hansen and Maureen Cook in refining our interactions with the residents and how that stems down to our contractor to have remediation work done for trees, whether it's removals, sidewalks, or pruning. On the sidewalk work that is requested by our residents, so from time to time residents are fixing their sidewalks. There is a process that goes along with that once they've hired someone to actually do the repairs, where once the sidewalk is lifted, we have to have our arborist or certified tree specialist go out and look at the root system and determine what happens next. There's no documented flow of that at this point, and that is something that Maureen and Colleen feel would be really helpful for them and to communicate with the residents. So that's an initiative that I've asked Kevin to work with directly with the DPW staff. The other thing that I've asked Kevin to do is coming up imminently on February 15th is our 2017 accomplishments that need to be submitted to the New Jersey Forestry. I happen to go online. I was doing a lot with the New Jersey Forestry this month. But there is a change process that's happening with that. I'm attending a webinar tomorrow, so that way I can get a better understanding of how that accomplishments document needs to be completed. I have forwarded that webcast to, the invite to the webcast to Kevin if he's able to attend. But if he's not, I'll be educated enough to help him get through that, so that way he can, should he be with us next year, he can complete it next year. because Kevin was coming on board, I decided I wanted to check in with some of the documentation that the New Jersey Forestry has when it comes to shade tree related items for every town in New Jersey. And after reviewing that documentation, there were some things that were highlighted that in December, when I was so proud of all of our accomplishments, there were a few things that I noticed on the documentation with the state that were not in line with what I had been told was completed. So there are some things that I wanted to follow up with everyone and make sure that you understood that while we thought they were completed, they were either not completed or we need to find where in transit they are. We had Brian Bertolo from the DPW go down to court training in Central Jersey this past October. If there's a requirement that a borough employee needs to be core trained in order to meet shade tree requirements. Brian was able to attend the training. Having been to the training myself, I can tell you there's a lot of things going on down at these seminars. It's not just a core training event, but there's also ongoing education that's happening, and some of it kind of looks the same. Brian did attend training, but he didn't attend the required core training. So we'll need Brian to go back down to Central Jersey in around, I think, the May timeframe is the next time they're offering the core training exercise. The commissioners on the shade tree also, I had set up some time with Steve Shuckman last year for him to bring us through a training that was here in town, and we reviewed some trees down on First Ave, about right tree, wrong place, right tree, right place. And I expected that training to show up on this state documentation. It did not. As Eric mentioned, Steve is out of the country actually until next Tuesday, so that is an item that I need to follow up with him on. Also, I had email correspondence with Steve about what I refer to as our 5-year plan, but it's the Community Forestry Management Plan, which is a pretty big initiative that needs to be completed every 5 years. 2017 was our re-up year. I noticed on the state documentation that hadn't been, quote, completed yet. When I was talking to the state, they did not have it in hand, although Steve says that he sent it. So we need to true that up with Steve next week. Let's see. And, okay, and then the other item that I think has been asked in other council meetings is the tree planting. Unfortunately, I do not believe at this point the tree planting has occurred. And again, another item that we need to follow up with Steve. We were under the impression that he was had completed or was in the process of completing in December the tree planting list to give to our contractors. I think there was more than one that we were looking at for the 2016, 2017. But at this point, I'm not confident in saying that anything has been physically planted for either one of those events. Okay, so more to come. Hopefully next time I'm here, which we'll have some of these things closed. When I found out that there were things that I had thought were completed and are not, one of the requirements that I've asked Kevin to make sure happens is that any and all correspondence that is happening, whether it's with our contractor via Downs, whether it's with the state, whether it's with councilmen or people, women, the mayor, anyone, I need to be included on that as well as Eric in most cases, because we can't have disconnects like this. If I'm being told that something's completed, I expect that it's completed. And to find out several months later, it doesn't really work for me. So we'll follow up on these items next week when Steve gets back. I'm optimistic with the enthusiasm that Kevin has shown in the first meeting. Again, he'll be meeting with Connie in the morning on Friday. And Kevin did commit, if anyone's around, that he's looking at Thursdays as his Hawthorne Day to be in town and work with resident issues. And at this point, I think we have 4 or 5 right now in the pipeline that he'll get started on immediately.
Excellent. Any questions?
So actually, Drea, the tree planting will take place in the spring.
Well, last year there was a lot of discussion about spring or fall, and I can say from the arborist perspective, from talking to Peter Slump at Downs or corresponding with him about the whole why it didn't happen last spring, is that in most cases, they prefer to plant in the fall. And so we had tried to make a change that instead of calling spring planting, fall planting, because depending on the weather, it may be okay to plant. The trees that are available may or may not be okay to plant, but that typically fall is a better time to do that. But right now, my priority is to find out why, you know, I understand from a business perspective, sometimes things don't get done. My biggest, you know, I would say, where I think the biggest improvement needs to happen is communication, you know, because things do happen and timelines do move. But when you don't communicate that or give the proper updates, you know, I don't like to communicate something is either in progress or completed and then find out that it's not in progress or isn't completed. So that to me is a big, something simple that we need to overcome this year.
Are you stating that there will be no tree planting done at all?
I do have to ask Dr. Boswell a question on
Joe,
that.
1 second. I have the
that
floor.
at all. No,
That's what Councilman Lane was inferring.
Yeah, well, no, he asked about spring planting.
Well, he said
So-
no. He said, will it be put off till the spring? And I want to know why is
For
it?
spring plantings?
Have we determined that it will not
We
be
haven't
done?
determined anything yet. The first thing we need to determine is what happened to 2016 and 17. And then we will determine next steps. But as of last year, between the arborist and our contractor who specializes in trees, their recommendation is that tree plantings occur in the fall.
I know we were told that it was going to happen in December. Obviously, we're a little past that date, but can it still be
Right,
occurring?
that's what we need to follow up with Steve. Unfortunately, you know, as just where I was told that things were, it was not.
Because I've been asking Eric, and he keeps telling me, you know, in December.
Well, if, after I can just clarify some of your question, we did all the markouts. Legally, how long are the markouts good after?
30 days.
You didn't do all of them because the tree that I requested was never marked out.
PSE&G, when I saw them, and then our water department went
You
around.
did the one that I requested.
Yeah, there's two different contractors. One of them may have done their call-ins, the other one may not have. Because there was a 2016 contractor and a 2017
Oh, it's
contractor.
done then.
So,
How much do we pay for markouts?
They're free.
Nothing.
Oh, I thought we paid like
actually-
611.
Actually, you do pay for it, but you don't notice it. You know, it's not really free. It's built into the rates, what you pay public service, what you pay Verizon. It's what.
And our water department went too.
There's no charge for a market.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, see if we can follow up on that. It would be great if we could still, I know we waited late because they lost their leaves late. And that's why December really wasn't an issue. You know, because even Kevin Downs
I
just,
have to be honest with you, I don't know what the issue was at this point for what was supposed to happen in December. The last thing I heard was that we were providing a list to Downs for the contract with Downs, and that planting was going to happen. So when the person in charge of that is telling me that, I assume.
Oh, you gotta believe him.
Yeah? And that's why I did ask.
Totally understandable.
And so there
Because
may
there's so
be
many
valid
questions.
issues, valid reasons why it hasn't happened, but until Steve returns from his vacation, these are one of a few things we need to follow up with him next week.
He didn't take the tree money to use it for his vacation.
That's a good question.
fortunately, we have the money, not him.
Oh, okay, good.
So if there was anyone taking a vacation, it would have been us, so.
And I leave on Tuesday.
So effective immediately, all new tree remediations will go with Kevin, Alberta, and we're going to try to make the cutover by the end of next week, and then we'll move forward from there. The other thing that kind of, highlighting from my findings this month, and also to the point that the mayor and Eric were highlighting that they like the whole idea of a mentor type program. I agree with that, like for any role that anyone takes on. So that is also while we have Kevin starting anew with us. I've asked for documentation on process, on whenever, Kevin shows up, he gets a folder, this is where he goes out in town. So that way, any of the future Kevins of the world, or future Maureen's or Colleen's, or even, whoever runs the Shade Tree Commission, that there's some documentation about what the role entails and what everyone should be doing in order to make, everything as seamless as possible.
Drea, just one other question to what I mentioned earlier about the article that was in the League magazine with regard to the state now having the tree companies be licensed. I can give you the information, or if we have a magazine here, you can take it. And this way you can at least look into it, because I don't know, it didn't say how the state's gonna process this and how they're gonna get a hold of the contractors or what they're gonna do, but at least I think that's a step forward, because there's, people out there that, like the companies that the power companies use are just hackers.
Yeah.
They have no experience with trees, they just cut them up,
I took that down as a note when we were talking about it.
Okay.
If you can either forward me a link or.
I'll get that for you.
And Mr. Mayor, we did welcome Robert Maggio, so thank you for
You're welcome.
adding him to our committee. He's already enlisted for one of our yearly events.
Good.
Excellent. So thank you very much for coming.
I'm sorry, can I make a comment?
No.
I have website redesign for you too.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, Drea, if a lot of phone calls come into administration in the clerk's office, tree-related, DPW, admin, what have you. So if the process is changing, how we field the phone calls and where they go to, will you just keep us in the loop as well, so we can direct them properly? Just because I heard you say tree stuff is going to Kevin. So, and I'm not sure if that means if phone calls come into Borough Hall, what we do with them. We normally just send them upstairs.
Yep.
So anything different, if you can just keep us in the loop, so we're directing them to the right spot. And then there's also an extension for the shade tree on the phone, if that needs to be changed, or any of that stuff, just if you want to let us know, and anything we can help with down in our office.
Thank you for pointing that out. That is what I really meant by Kevin taking on, starting, he's having all tree stuff go to him, was really just that instead of the request coming into DPW and then basically the papers being handed to Steve Shuffman, they would go to Kevin Alberta. So the phone calls and emails and all of that remains in place, and it should go to, the hawthorneshade.com email address or to the established phone number, and still field it the same way.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You too.
Joe, are you going to have professional presenters for all your reports?
No, I'm just lucky enough to
I
have.
won't be back until August.
All right, Gary?
You never know.
John?
Finance Committee met on Monday and finalized the salary ordinance that we put together there. There was some preliminary discussions on where we're going with this year's budget. I believe we'll start meeting in earnest in February. There was discussion, and I guess as we plan the budget, of where this, the $15 minimum wage may affect us, and some of the, things we want to take a look at just to prepare for what may happen down the road.
I actually do have one.
I thought you did.
We have scheduled 2 more meetings in February for the ordinance committee on the zoning, and we also have those couple of issues that we talked about before, marijuana. Is that also on the agenda for those meetings?
Yeah, just, if I could just join in that, what we did at the ordinance committee meeting yesterday on the zoning ordinances, we took the map of the borough and the zoning map and started to look at where we needed to make changes. For instance, the R1 zone as it exists in the Jefferson School area is vastly different in terms of land sizes from the Washington School District or where I lived near the high school. So we're looking at creating new zoning that's more consistent with what exists now, as opposed to in a vacuum. So we did a lot yesterday. We have covered about 150 pages of new material so far for the zoning code. So there has been tremendous work done so far, and we have a lot more ahead of us.
Joe, your house now is an industrial zone.
So we accomplished a lot, and we're going to double our meetings in February.
Thank you, Gary. John?
I gave our.
Bruce?
Yes, the Board of Recreation held their reorganization meeting on the 10th, and congratulations to President Bob Pasquale and Vice President Jackie Passero.
Dominic?
The Municipal Alliance met for the first time this year. They appointed their the chairman, Joanne Graziano, introduced their new coordinator, Mr. Bello, on, let me see now, on March 22nd, talking about the drugs, the high school's having a drug coordinating with the mayor.
Hidden in
and
plain
the-
sight, right.
Yeah, and with everybody else, so that's there. And on April 25th, there's the play and dinner for the seniors again. Can I tell them what they're gonna do? Is that a
Why
secret?
not?
They're
Don't
doing
forget
They're
about
doing Cinderella, so.
Is Rich in it?
Well, he's.
Fairy godmother.
Yeah,
I
One
wanted
of
to
my-
be Cinderella, the Jerry Lewis version.
and that's my report.
Councilman Lean.
No, I have nothing.
Okay.
You want to write that down?
To wrap up, the Chamber of Commerce wishes to thank everyone who turned out for their Company of the Year dinner. We had over 200 plus attendees, and it was a great night had by all. Planning Board last night, as we spoke about earlier, a self-storage company is looking to build on the property of the International Bakery. Packets were handed out to Planning Board members last evening for review and will be on the work session for the next meeting. That concludes my reports. Correspondence, we have none, but we do have bills.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve the bills and forward them to treasurer for payment.
So moved.
Motion by Neely, second by Sitting. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bennett,
Yes.
Bertolo,
Abstain on Downs Tree Service, yes on all others.
Lane,
Abstain on the fire department and the ambulance corps, yes on all others.
Neely,
Yes on all of them.
Sitting,
Yes.
Woteki,
Abstain on the fire department, yes on all others.
Matthews.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Public comment. I'll open the meeting to the public. If anyone desires to be heard, please raise your hand. Come to the microphone. State your name and address. Seeing no one that wants to come forward, I entertain a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Bertolo, second by Woteki. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by
Whatever.
Sitting, second by Mealy. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next regular meeting of the municipal council will be February 7th, 2018 at 7 PM. We are adjourned.